On average, an NFL team runs over 2,000 plays per season. Obviously, some plays are more critical than others, but what if one single play out of those 2,000 plus ends up deciding the fate of your entire season? A season that, if you include the start of training camp, begins in July and ends in January. Unfortunately, I feel like that happened to two teams during the 2024 season. Let's go in order with the first one that happened. It's week 8 and the 4-2 Chicago Bears are on the road against the 5-2 Washington Commanders. A matchup with tons of anticipation, not only because of each team having a good record, but it was a matchup between the first and second overall picks in the most recent NFL draft. On Washington's side, the second overall pick Jaden Daniels was off to a tremendous start to his NFL career. But on the other side with the Bears, the first overall pick Caleb Williams was off to a decent start to his NFL career, and looking to take that spotlight away from Daniels. At this point for Chicago, things were trending up after a 1-2 start to the season. They were on a 3-game win streak, having scored over 24 points in each of those wins. And the good news for Chicago was they had this game wrapped up. 5-2 was staring them right in the face. All they had to do was stop Jaden Daniels and the Commanders from going over more than half the field with just 2 seconds remaining. One stop short of the end zone and this game was over. The Bears sent 4 pass rushers, and Daniels, as he's known to do, was able to buy time in the pocket before unleashing a Hail Mary that just fell short of the goal line. Luckily for Washington though, the ball was batted backwards and caught for a game-winning touchdown as time expired. All it took was one mental lapse by Bears cornerback Tyreek Stevenson, and this Bears team that was 2 seconds away from 5-2 fell to 4-3. After this moment, it took the Chicago Bears over 2 months to win their next game. Everything completely unraveled. Despite firing their offensive coordinator, their head coach, and being in a position to win multiple games, Chicago found themselves at 4 wins heading into January before winning Week 18 versus the Packers. Their Week 17 loss versus the Seahawks, where they could only muster up 3 points offensively, was their 10th loss in a row. You start to think about what type of a toll that loss in Week 8 took on this team, and clearly it was something they could not bounce back from. The ensuing 2 games after the Hail Mary, Chicago got blown out by the Cardinals and the Patriots, not exactly the upper echelon of the NFL. If Stevenson did his assignment on that play and the pass falls incomplete, then how does this Bears season play out? Or on the flip side, how does Washington's season play out without that miracle victory? It seems like the Bears were not ready to compete regardless, but a 5-2 record with momentum could have changed the outcome for this horrible season. But to look at this in a positive light, which I've seen some Bears fans do, the Hail Mary may have been a way to expose Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron, and the rest of their coaching staff. Our next single play that may have ruined the season happened much later in the year. It was Week 15, the 6-7 Indianapolis Colts were coming off their bye for a game at the Denver Broncos. With the Broncos coming in 8-5 and in control of the 7th and final wildcard spot in the AFC, it was pretty much a must-win game for the Colts. If the Colts had won this matchup, it would have brought their chances of making the playoffs from 26% all the way up to 56%, a 30% increase on just one win. If the Colts had lost this game at Denver, their playoff chances would drop to a minuscule 7%. To this point, it was a weird season for Indy, mainly due to the handling of their quarterback 1 position. But they had won 2 of their past 3 games at this point since Anthony Richardson returned as the quarterback 1. They hovered around 500 for most of the season, with their highest point being 4-3 after a non-convincing win versus the Dolphins with Tyler Huntley under center. This matchup against Denver, though, was huge. It was going to determine their season one way or another. Through the first 2.5 quarters, it looked like the extra prep time greatly benefited Indy, and they found themselves up 13-7 at halftime. This 3-play sequence, though, early in the 3rd quarter, had it looking like the Colts were going to go into Denver and secure a huge win. Bo Nix overthrew Cortland Sutton, and the ball was picked off in the waiting arms of Samuel Womack III. 2 plays later, it was dead silent at Mile High, as Jonathan Taylor ran for a 40-yard touchdown, making it 20-7 Indianapolis. There were still over 27 minutes remaining, but the game felt over at this point. Bo Nix was having his worst game in the NFL, having just thrown his 2nd of 3 interceptions, and immediately after, the Colts' rushing attack made it a 2-score advantage. Indy was well on their way to escaping Denver, with their playoff percentage now well over 50%. But then, something weird happened. Watching the play live, I thought nothing of it. But then, some chatter was happening, I saw some replays that kept being shown, and Gene Sterator's voice was now heard in the background. Soon after on the screen, a red bar said call overturned. After review, the officials discovered that Taylor had committed what I believe is the stupidest play in sports. A play that we used to see every few years, but for some reason it happened about 3 or 4 times during the 2024 season. Taylor had apparently dropped the football before crossing the goal line, resulting in a touchback, meaning that the 20-7 Colts lead reverted back to 13-7, and Denver got the ball back as if nothing happened. From this moment on, basically, the Colts got slaughtered. Denver ended this game scoring 24 unanswered points, resulting in a 31-13 victory over a stunned Colts team, a team that could not get over this mistake. Denver, with that big win, pushed their playoff hopes up to 89% as compared to 47% had they lost that game, and based on how things played out, they needed this game. For the Colts, they finished the year 2-1 over the final 3 games, but still missed the playoffs. That one loss coming to Drew Lock and the Giants, who scored 45 points, the first time the Giants scored over 40 in over 5 years. To no surprise, the Colts fired their defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley, but their dysfunction goes much deeper than just the defensive coordinator. Pat McAfee recently put the organization on blast, with some fans backing his remarks, while some were unsurprisingly offended. I really am curious though, how would this game play out in week 15 if Taylor had crossed the goal line with possession? It's not like they didn't have time to get back on track. Bo Nix even threw another interception right after that happened, but the fourth quarter went about as bad as it could have for Indy, including a trick play gone terribly wrong, where Adonai Mitchell made a horrendous rookie mistake. But ultimately, I believe things like this are one of the reasons we love sports. You start prepping for a season in May with OTAs, training camp, preseason, eventually the regular season, and it could all go for nothing just because of one single play out of the thousands you run throughout the regular season. And while we tend to focus on these things happening in the playoffs, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen in the regular season either. These are questions we'll never know the answer to, but it brings you down this rabbit hole of possibilities where it makes you think where the Bears and Colts seasons would have went had these 2 plays been a more favorable outcome. If you enjoyed the video, of course, leave a like and subscribe for more NFL content. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you next time.